I am now pleased to welcome to the floor our next speaker for today, Herman Satkauskas, CEO and co-founder of UnderstockMe, a new B2B surplus food platform connecting suppliers and manufacturers of food to commercial buyers such as food services, meal delivery services, and charities. Launched in 2020 at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The platform was created to help suppliers deal with a huge surplus of food, which was routinely arising at the time during these within the supply chain. Herman has previously worked in multiple roles at different tech startups, most prominently at Host, a UK-based short-term rental service that he saw grow from a team of just 2 people into a global company managing thousands of homes worldwide. Today, Herman is joining us to share his insights on B2C recipes for the B2B world. What can we learn? Herman, a great pleasure to have you.
Franco, hello. Hello, can you hear me well? Can you see me well?
We can, yes.
Perfect, lovely. All right, so hi everyone. And first of all, huge shout out to the organizers and also to the other speakers, because yeah, it's always encouraging to see that you have other people and companies working on very similar problems in the world, and there's been quite a few today. So I will proceed with my presentation, and it's all going to be about relaying my previous experience in B2C to B2B with B2B food tech in focus. So let me just give you a few bits about myself. So my name is Herman. I actually come from Klaipėda in Lithuania. I've lived in London for the past 10 years. And pretty much for the past 10 years or so, I have been involved in startups. So all the different kinds. So as it has been mentioned, I've done quite a long stint at House, which was very much a B2C company focused on property management, something to do with Airbnb, short-term rentals. And yeah, I just love tinkering with things. And I also love cooking. So you could call UnderstockMe, which is my company right now, actually a bit of a passion project. So moving on, what is UnderstockMe? So we are building a new B2B surplus food platform connecting suppliers and manufacturers of food to commercial buyers. And by commercial buyers, we mean pretty much anyone who buys food in bulk. So we can talk about cafes, restaurants, even charities actually buy from us. And why? It's the answer is very simple: to create something to help our suppliers to deal with a huge amount of surplus food. And you would not believe the tons and tons of food that is routinely overproduced that just arises within the supply chain. And kind of going a little bit more granular, basically the real reasons behind this whole surplus, because everyone thinks of the pandemic, okay, so food service shut, all of a sudden, distributors don't have anywhere to put this, these huge amounts of food into. Actually, no, the problem is a lot older. It spans decades and decades, if not centuries. Essentially, it's all about how long the supply chain is, how difficult it is to balance the power, because we have everyone in there. We have the producers, we have the farmers, we have the supermarkets on the other side. And, like we've had the pandemic, but then comes the gas shortage, then comes, any other factor that just like completely jumbles everything up. And we just knew that, this visibility is needed. And our dream is essentially to provide this digital infrastructure to use the advances in technology to actually, win this market, produce something that allows, producers to connect to buyers in a much more transparent way. Because at the moment, like, believe it or not, like the issues that the problems that we've actually heard directly from our suppliers are actually quite ridiculous, if not the borderline offensive, because when you hear something like, oh, well, we didn't know what to do with this, with these 10 tons of anything, it could be tuna, it could be like grain, it could be pretty much any type of wholesale food, and they say to you that, oh, we really wanted to do something with it, but we actually had to pay to get it destroyed. When there's, we're based in London, and we know for a fact that there's 350 food charities just trying to distribute food to the poor. This is quite insane, and this is hopefully where we come in. Essentially, what we're trying to do is build a global platform that brings this visibility and really, really resolves this resolves this problem. So moving on a little bit closer to the theme of this presentation, which is like, how do we connect B2C and B2B, and what do the two have in common? I'll move on to the team. So I won't go into specific introductions, but if you look at all of us, it's a pretty small team at the moment, but what you'll notice is that we connect people who have experience in very, very kind of like hardcore technology products, and also someone, who's worked in food service, who's built things for food service, who's built SaaS platforms for food service. And this is my very, very strong belief, and it's one of the core points of this presentation, is that you have to really build stuff for humans, whether it's B2B, whether it's B2B, but this was the strategy, and still is, of me building my team and going forwards. So I'm going to move on to a very quick question, and I'm obviously not going to speak to the audience right now, but I would like everyone to spend probably like 5 to 10 seconds thinking about the following companies. So you have Airbnb, you have Uber, you have Groupon. So what do you think they have in common? I'm counting to 5. So there's no right or wrong question, or wrong answer to this, but to me, there's a few patterns that you can definitely see with them. First of all of them were founded in a time of crisis, and as you all know, like, crises have arisen in humanity for like centuries. So like it's a normal part of our life, and we're very obviously living through one right now, which is the global pandemic and all of the fallout that's coming after it. And it was innovation spurred by the difficulties of living in crisis. And what did that mean? It meant that these guys used really cool technology to use the world resources more efficiently. And this is very important, because I'm also going to touch upon the topic of sustainability in this presentation, which is obviously is something that everyone is talking about, but what that really is, like, we'll touch upon that a little bit later. And the third main factor that at least I will definitely stress is all of them created an excellent customer experience. So, there's many questions about all of these companies. I understand that very, very well, but you can't deny one fact. If you hadn't had consumer love for them, they would not be where they are right now. So what can a founder learn? And by a founder, I mean anyone. It could be in B2C, in B2B, it could be completely unrelated to FoodTech, which is obviously the theme of tonight. But to me, there's 3 very, very critical lessons that I think we can all learn from. First of all, keep looking for broken systems and inefficiencies. They will always be there. Whatever develops further, whatever developed in the past, it really doesn't matter. So you'll see, news all over the world of, VCs investing in one specific area, like rapid grocery delivery. Maybe it's ride sharing. It could be anything else. It doesn't matter, as long as you actually realize that there's a real problem and it needs a solution, you're already on the right path. The second bit is obviously, I will keep stressing this, excellent user experience is key. And this is where we kind of delve into the B2B territory where, we've had companies, suppliers, wholesalers, go like, oh, we just have a website, they can call us up. It really isn't the case anymore, even now. It will develop into the future even more. And finally, it's probably one of the most important bits and something that we hold very dear as a founding team. You just have to keep a firm human hand on ethics. Whatever fancy technology you have behind, like driving the actual platform, you need to have good ethics. This is why we've had very, very big stories coming out behind, big tech. It's in a way, we're kind of, I would say that we're living, it's my personal opinion, but that we're living in a bit of a time of disillusionment where, we might not believe in tech as doing only good, and maybe that's fair. But what that means to me is that, yes, tech has the potential to resolve a lot of human problems. It's just it's all about how you control it. And let's very briefly talk about sustainability, because I keep getting this question, as like, we're a pre-seed startup, and I keep getting this question from potential investors, and they go like, okay, so are you, a startup that just, is focused on food waste, eliminating the food waste from the world, or are you trying to give something else? I think the answer is more complex, but I really do hope, like from this presentation, to bring a slightly fresher take on all of this, because I do think that sustainability in the current world environment, and I don't mean literally CO2 or anything like that, I do think that sustainability is really efficiency in disguise. And I'm going to say a few controversial things here, and please feel free to bring this up in the Q&As later. But I'm going to say that I firmly believe that businesses, however you frame them, are out there to make money. Like, that's always been the case. And yes, you have CSR, corporate social responsibility. Yes, you have all of the flashy campaigns around, proper sourcing and being ethical, and like, the theme. It's not really about that. Yes, you have to be sustainable, but again, it's not about greenwashing. And greenwashing is literally what, ticking a box saying that we've planted 100 trees and all of a sudden, 10 of our factories, some are very unsustainable with very unsustainable workforce, are suddenly okay. It's not about that. In my mind, and I would like, to keep this as one of the main takeaways, is that a profitable business taking care of all stakeholders, and by stakeholders, I mean shareholders, employees, the environment around, is sustainable by design. So I think this point is actually quite important, and it is slightly, very, very slightly different to, the usual, oh my God, the world is burning, we need to do something about it, let's invest another 10 million, whatever currency you like, into a flyering campaign that's going to produce more waste. So I do think that there's this golden middle that actually unites all of these actually really nice things. And moving on to B2B, I would also like to stress a few key points. So these are the kind of my observations, and these are from myself looking at my experiences at different companies, which were more consumer focused, but also looking at the dynamics of B2B companies. So B2B replicates B2C with a bit of a delay. So if you think of companies like Salesforce, this is exactly what they're doing. So they are providing a service that's easier and easier to use for the employees. They've created a platform that is actually great because, first of all, like what's in the current environment, you have to get employee buy-in. It has to be easy to use because, if a business decides to get a platform or use any type of software, any kind of service that's difficult to use, the employees are going to hate it, and it's going to cause really bad company morale and more. And like, personally, I'm quite happy about it. The employees are demanding more, and I think it's only fair to keep staff happy, because quite frankly, everyone deserves decent software. My second point would be B2B is the new investment battleground, which is something you can definitely understand just looking at key stats, looking at investment in B2B businesses, in B2B marketplaces, which is a lot closer to the specific kind of specific bits about Understock Me. Like, we've seen a lot of attention, and we know it's coming, and it's only gonna escalate. So, and finally, my final point would be that B2B companies will compete between each other using the exact same. They're going to compete on user experience. It's going to be all about the interface. It's going to be even about the love of the brand. Employees need to be bought in, and it's not enough anymore to just take care of your bottom line as a business when you contract anyone else to take care of, I don't know, your inventory management or sourcing or buying. You just really need to focus on these things. So very briefly, and I'm quite aware that I haven't actually touched the details of B2B in food, but this is what we've learned as a company operating in this particular area. So first of all, oh my God, the food industry is in dire need of innovation, and I'm sure, like, pretty much the reason why we're having this conversation right now, why we're having so many speakers, is because we understand it. So even in developed markets, and I'll go back to that example where a major supplier in the UK says that they can't donate food, well, because it's too difficult. It is ludicrous, and it's something that needs fixing. Number two would be just us facing the challenge of changing the B2B consumer behavior. And again, this loops back to what I said previously. You're building for humans, you're building for employees. It's first, there's a few more bits in here. The first being, like, you're working with an old industry, so you're working across all of the different demographics. So you have your mom and pop shops basically that have been there for decades. How do you, for example, convince them to source to a more ethical supplier, or to, like, actually not drive to the wholesaler, which is the usual behavior at the moment, and actually get something in a more efficient way, in a more sustainable way? This is something that any startup in B2B in food tech really needs to think about. And I'm sure, if you take someone like Deliveroo or Uber Eats, perhaps, of course, they've encountered this, but there's so much more to do rather than just consumer food delivery. And it's a very interesting problem to solve, because maybe you have to do in-person sales, maybe you have to call them up, something that is different from putting up online ads, because you have to figure out those channels. And as with any startup, it's all about testing, experimenting, being lean. Like, nothing changes, but it's just very interesting when you apply this to basically to quite an old industry that hasn't seen much innovation apart from very specific areas in the late years. And finally, and this is something that it could be like one of the most important points, because it keeps happening every time we keep hearing this from every single restaurant, cafe, chef, anyone working in the food industry. The service experience just needs to be fantastic. They want Amazon for food. They want everything to be one click. And you know what? It's not like we don't have the tech to build that. We do. It's just about understanding that you're not building a B2B enterprise piece of software. yeah, maybe it might need to be a lot closer to a consumer app like Amazon, or, if you look at Facebook, or like anything you have on your phone. This is where B2B is moving, and something that we understand very closely. And I'm just going to leave you with 3 main takeaways, and it's something that we understand. Hopefully, some other people understand as well, but it's built for humans, guys. If you're developing something for B2B, don't put on a shitty interface. Like, build something that is appealing, build something that's easy to use, because this is where focus is shifting. It's all going to be about not the CEO deciding that, oh, this product is 20% cheaper. No, it's going to be about, employees very loudly protesting about the crappy system they have to use. Number 2 would be solve real problems, and hopefully, that's what we're doing, what we do. There's millions of those around the world in the food industry, most definitely. So as long as you have those 2 together, money will follow. And what do I mean by that? First of all, you'll get revenues, as long as you really put the thinking together, and as long as you keep the ethics in mind and everything else that I've mentioned during this presentation, you will have no problem getting the right money from the right investors. And that's a whole other conversation, but hopefully with these 3, I will leave you with some inspiration, I hope. And with that in mind, I will say thank you. And as a company, we're always open to collaboration. We're always open to speaking to people in the industry or even slightly outside of the industry. So my contact details are on the screen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Herman. Very, very insightful, very passionate. I'm so glad that you brought things out to a little bit of a more higher level lens, and brought in some parallels and tie-ins with larger tech industry trends, etc. Verticals, food tech is no exception, but it's nice to be explicitly reminded of these sorts of things sometimes. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.